Hello, I'm Peter Cook, and today we're going to think about the musical elements. Well, what are the musical elements is a very good question. Sometimes they're called all sorts of names. Sometimes they're called the features of music. And if you're being really good, you can call them the interrelated dimensions of music. Hallelujah. Well, that is a big word, isn't it? But don't worry about big words like that, because really it's quite easy. They're the kind of ingredients of sounds that go together to make up music. So each little film is going to be about one aspect of the interrelated dimensions of music. And today we're going to think about what's called dynamics. We could be thinking about pitch, or we could be thinking about duration, or all sorts of exciting things. But today, it's probably the most exciting of all. It's the wow factor of music, and it's called the dynamics of music. And really, that just means the loudness and the quietness, maybe even the silence that happens in music. After all, if we all talked at the same rate all the time, if we all talked at the same rate all the time, if we all talked at the same rate, joining in, sort of throwing in things, and there was just chaos, joining in, and there was just throwing things all the time, and there was no one ever on, because we wouldn't be able to hear it. So dynamics in music are really important. They're what makes music really, really interesting. So if I spoke really quietly, then maybe you'd listen a bit harder. And if I just shouted all the time, you'd probably just think I was quite an angry person. So that's what it is. Today we're thinking about the dynamics of music, the loudness and the quietness. So let's start with a big explosion of sound. Crikey. I've had to put my hat on because that was loud. I've got my ear pads, and also it's freezing cold up here. It's been a really snowy winter over in this part of the world. Anyway, so are you thinking what makes up different sounds, loudness and quietness? Well, to help us explain this, we're going to listen to two pieces of music. We're going to listen to a fantastic Icelandic musician called Björk, and we're going to also listen to a wonderful musician called Mozart. So let's start off with a bit of Björk, and you'll have to be really, really quiet to hear this. In fact, shh.
Shh. It's oh so quiet. Shh. Shh. It's oh so still. All alone, shh, shh, and so peaceful until you fall in love. Sing through the sky up above. Sing through it's caving in. Wow, wow, you've never been so nuts about a guy you wanna love. You wanna cry, you crush your heart and hope to die. Till it's over, and then shh, shh, it's so nice.
It's very exciting stuff, isn't it? Did you hear how it starts so quietly and you're drawn in closer and closer? Hey, not that close, but pretty close, because it's so quiet, and then suddenly it all goes absolutely wild, and it's really exciting, and it gets everybody up and dancing. And I know this is a lot of people's favourite kind of music. So quietness and loudness are really, really important. By the way, did you hear at the beginning of that you could hear some flutes and some clarinets playing really, really quietly? Well, one of the instruments we're going to think about as we explore the dynamics of music is the clarinet, and it looks like this. Oh, sorry, that's not the right picture. that's the right one. So Björk uses the clarinet and flute and woodwinds and saxophones and a whole band of musicians to really use loudness and quietness in her music. And we're also going to think about the way that another composer used loudness and quietness, and another instrument too. Well, that person was Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Now, he was an Austrian composer who even visited England. In fact, he came when he was about 8 years old and played concerts in London. But we're going to think about one of his pieces today, which features the piano and the clarinet. Now, let's have a little think about the word piano, because we know the piano is a musical instrument. You can see I've got one over here. But also, piano means quiet, and forte means loud. So the real name of that instrument, the piano, is actually the pianoforte. And that's because it was one of the first instruments that used louds and quiets. So it was called the quiet loud instrument, the pianoforte. And that was invented just before Mozart was born. So as he was growing up, he was playing what was called the harpsichord, which was, well, it looked a bit like this. And the big problem with the harpsichord was, well, although it sounded quite nice, it couldn't play quiet and loud notes. The way that it worked was it just flicked the strings. So when you press down one of the keys, which looked a bit like this piano here or this keyboard here, but actually it worked in a very different way, and it would just flick the strings so you could only play one loudness. So when the piano came along that could play, or the pianoforte I should say, and it could play quiet notes as well as loud notes, well, of course, composers got really, really excited. Of course, this was about 250 years ago. Mozart was born in 1756, I think, and he straight away, so by the sort of 1780s, he was writing lots and lots of music for piano as well. And one of the pieces that we're going to hear today has a piano and a clarinet in it, because they were the new inventions of the time. And like any one of us, he loved a new gadget. So he would, as soon as he could start writing for it, then he would write for the piano and the clarinet. And there's also another instrument in this, which is called the viola, which is a little bit like a violin, but a bit bigger and looks like this. There we go. So we're going to jump into the musical score now. So what you can see in front of you is what the conductor might see, the person who's in control of the musicians, and he can see all the parts that they're going to play. So let's just read through this musical score and see what we can tell from it. Well, this is a trio. This means there's 3 people playing it, and those people are playing the pianoforte, the clarinet and the viola. And it also says W.A. Mozart, which means Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, and he's the composer, and he composed this, we can see, on the 5th of August 1786. So that's about 250 years ago, and that's when Mozart was 30. Now let's see how the musicians read the music. So first instrument at the top here is the clarinet, and the clarinet looks along this thing which is called a stave. So it's 5 lines all quite close together, and that's what the notes sit on, a little bit like a ladder that you go up and down. And the clarinet reads the notes when he sees them. Well, there's no notes here, so that's all rest, so he doesn't have to play anything. And when he gets to here, this is the first note that he plays, and we can see that there's a little P there, which means piano, which means quiet. He reads all the rest of the notes and plays those notes, and that's that page for him. So let's go back and have a look at the viola. So the viola, the person playing the viola, starts here and plays these notes, and look, there's an F there. That means forte, which means loud, and a P for piano, which means quiet. And he or she plays those notes, counts the rests, and then he or she continues playing all those notes that they've practiced, and then there's lots of rests there, so they don't play anymore. And then we get to the pianoforte staves, and look, there's one stave here and one stave there. So that's for the left hand, and this is for the right hand, and we can see they're one instrument because they're joined with this squiggly little line here. So that means it's one instrument and it's all the pianoforte. And just look, again we've got that F for forte, for loud, and P for piano, for quiet. So I think Mozart here is really showing off the fact that when you press down harder on the notes on a piano, you get a loud sound, and then you play very quietly. If you press down just a little bit, you can play really quietly, and that makes the music sound really interesting. And we're going to hear that now. So this is where the piano player would be playing, and you're going to hear that. Now don't worry if you don't understand all that, it doesn't really matter. You can learn all that as you get better and better at being a musician. Just listen and enjoy the first about 20 seconds of the Kegelstadt Trio. So to finish with today, on our little whistle-stop tour of dynamics, we're going to finish with a piece called Oh So Quiet. You heard the beginning before, and here's the ending of it. It's by Bjork. It's a fantastic piece, and really listen how exciting it is at the end. And when you play music yourself, remember to use loud notes and quiet notes to really help you express yourself and make you interesting, exciting to play, and really engaging for the audience. Thanks for listening to this.
I'm falling